Welcome to the world of tomorrow!
Welcome to Psych Out, episode 42. I am Nathan Gandy, psychology instructor and host of the podcast, along with my cohort,
speech instructor Jason Edgar, assistant coach to the podcast, or assistant Mike, whatever you want to call it. And we're here on episode 42.
42.
And me and Nathan spent some time together this week.
Mandate. We fed our hunger.
One of my most favorite nights in a long time. First off,
thank you.
We went to Copeland's.
Yes, one of my favorite restaurants of all time.
Oh my gosh! And what is the specific type of restaurant Copeland's is?
Louisiana cuisine would probably be the best way to describe it.
So obviously Nathan's on board since it's Louisiana cuisine. There's crickets and things like that in the. But it's really just such good food too. And then we went and watched Hunger Games. And ironically, after eating a delicious meal.
We were hungry, and then we watched children fight for it.
Yeah, we'll talk about Hunger Games later, our take on it. And like I said, great meal, and Hunger Games turned out to be a great movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing, Nathan, that kind of just deadened our night was the news that we got as soon as we were out of the movie theater that Paul Walker is dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks. We were driving home. I was driving, so Jason was on his phone, and he just every statement you made, understandably, was very on the fence. It's like, I think Paul Walker is dead.
They'll pick specific people that it's happened to Greg Kinnear before.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's happened to Jackie Chan and also Bill Cosby.
Yes.
Where someone will just start a rumor like Bill Cosby died, and then once that gets shared on one website, then it just that goes viral. So
and especially in the age of Facebook, which we've talked about multiple times in podcasts, the simplest rumor can explode with likes and
then people
posts.
that are just acting as contrarian, they'll say this is an internet hoax without them actually knowing. If it's an internet hoax, and so you're like, well, do I believe this person or do I believe that person?
Right. And I was telling Jason, what I found fascinating too was I think there was that sliver of, since Paul Walker, an actor most famous for his roles in the Fast and the Furious movies, died in a car accident. This was a high-speed car accident. I think it was a race. It also adds to that weird, this has to be made up because his death mirrors something that he's known for.
Okay,
and so, we even went back and forth on the car ride home. I think by about 20 minutes in the car ride, I think you said you found enough evidence that said, yes, this is a real thing.
And also, the more you think about it, the more actually that would be fitting for, an unfortunate Paul Walker death, because probably whenever people get in a car with them, their friends are like, hey, let's go really fast. It's like you go fast in a movie. I remember a story, who's one of the guys on Cheers? George Wendt. Every time he goes into a bar, people have to buy him a beer.
Yes.
And that could be detrimental over, decades and decades, right? So people probably get in cars with Paul Walker and they're like, hey, let's go 120. You do that. And he's probably like, not again. So I don't know. There could be some semblance to that, but so now that we know that it's not an internet hoax, Nathan, you already really said what I was going to say was interesting death. Early departure, obviously. He was about 40 years old.
I believe.
And I don't watch the Fast and the Furious movies, but he was in Varsity Blues.
Yes.
And that was about it. I knew he existed. I think he's a nice guy. So he looks like a guy that would have put me in a locker in high school. So I don't know. So rest in peace, Paul Walker, I guess.
Indeed. That's very unfortunate. Now, I say bigger news. I guess we can talk about it in a big ways. Of course, we're coming off the heels of Black Friday, big shopping weekend.
Today, we're recording on Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday, which has kind of become the nomenclature for the buy your stuff online on this day.
And let's not forget Small Business Saturday.
Yes,
right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, which I think is interesting. And I like the idea of Black Friday because it kind of gives a little boost to our economy. First off, you help obviously the retailers, but also you're paying sales tax, and that obviously goes towards things. So it's not necessarily like a fix all to our economy, but it's a nice little jolt in the year.
Well, Jason, I actually bought some things online as well as in shops. I didn't do the crazy hour Black Friday stuff. In fact, I didn't do any shopping on Friday. Did it on Saturday online. But that stuff's still in the mail.
Yes.
I did not get my packages from a magical flying robot.
Okay.
But apparently you brought news that will soon change.
I knew that's what you were alluding to. Where is it? This one says that marriage is a bad idea. I'll go. We'll talk about that in our weird science.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Amazon.com sees delivery drones as the future. And so a drone is a kind of like it's obviously man-made, what am I going to say? Ship,
flying robot,
but it's
automaton.
not. Well, what would you call it, Nathan?
Remote controlled flying machine.
Yeah. So they're wanting these remote controlled drones to start delivering our mail, right? Because let's think of what the post office guy does. You're paying him like $17 an hour, doing something a robot could do, right?
Jason, making enemies of the post office, one podcast at a time.
Yeah. So consider it the modern day version of a pizza delivery boy minus the boy.
So their idea was what? 30-minute package deliveries via drone.
So. And how do they do that? Are they gonna like drop it like near your house, or does it like hover like above your door, or you get a sign for this?
Well, I have not signed for a package in a really long time, and I order a lot of stuff online, so I guess that part's out of it. So yeah, I guess it hovers, it drops it on your doorstep, and then leaves. And
thinking of another thing you do, Nathan, do you read books, or do you read books on your e-reader?
I do about half and half.
So I think this is kind of going in the wrong direction. Wouldn't you think Amazon would rather, instead of having just drones flying and possibly dropping books on old people, maybe making more of a push towards e-books in general, where we don't even have to deliver books because everything's on e-files?
Well, maybe they're delivering things that aren't books, such as the Christmas presents I ordered Jason.
Oh, really?
That is not a book. What do you think about that, sir?
Oh, okay.
But again, a robot didn't bring it to me.
I thought this was specifically just for books. They're saying that...
maybe it is. I don't know.
Oh, you might be right. So there you go. Well, hopefully they're not delivering knives, right? And then they're going to
knives by the air. And then the drones figure out how to use them, and we're doomed.
And that's the thing that I heard from because this kind of had some traction in current events today. People were talking about this is the exact same thing that Terminator
Skynet.
is based on.
yeah, just change Amazon.
But instead of Skynet, it's called Amazon. So, anyways,
the future. You heard it here first. Flying robot delivery men.
Any other notes? There was some weird transportation news I don't want to get into, but there was a helicopter that crashed into a pub in Scotland, and I think a train crashed in New York.
Plane crashed in Alaska.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
Holiday tragedies. Well, we're known for being the most non-depressing podcast ever.
Sad. The first podcast we ever talked about, the Pope resigned, and which that doesn't happen for 700 years.
Right.
And also, speaking of the post office killing Saturday service. So yeah,
we are a shipper thing. Well, it's all right because there'll be some rigid airships bringing packages in the mail.
Oh, the humanity. Anyway, so both Nathan and I kind of wanted to have a little wrap up on this particular podcast. So we're going to transition into weird science. So Nathan, sing us into weird science.
Weird. I like it when your friend Aaron does that. Weird.
Yeah, I'm sure he appreciates you having him sing weird science for us all the time, too.
That's what I do.
All right. So anyways, do you want to start off with marriage is bad or cats hate us?
I started to say, let's save the cat thing because it's good news, but no, it's not. So we'll do your marriage one first.
Okay. Well, I was stumbling upon some news articles, and I think this came from Psychology Today. And so Psychology Today is going to be perfect for us, right, Nathan?
It is it's a magazine. Sometimes they publish good stuff, sometimes they don't. Because they are a magazine. They're not a journal. But
oh, there we go.
But let's see what they're quoting.
They posted an article where I guess Washington Post posted it.
Okay.
It wasn't Psychology Today.
Linked it.
Here we go. Psychology study. Wedded bliss and gut feelings sometimes conflict.
No.
Okay, so what are they saying here, Nathan? A new study by psychologists found that newlyweds had underlying positive or negative gut feelings about their spouses that many were unaware of and that predicted marital satisfaction years later.
So basically they probed them, they poked at them to say, how do you feel about this, without even thinking about it. And it turns out maybe all along they knew it was a good idea or a bad idea, but weren't quite I guess, externalizing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are they referring to as a gut feeling, though? Because we talk about cognitive dissonance, but that's a brain feeling.
Yeah, and in fact, it's like, anything. We like to use all of our organs. I love you with my heart. I have a gut feeling. Oh, it's all your brain. It's all your brain. In this case, when people say gut feeling, they're talking about those instincts that we have, those more primitive problem solving. It's sometimes called the hindbrain. It's just very instinctual part of our brain, arguably the oldest part of our brain, because it's what's kept us alive and making those impulse and instinctual decisions. So again, without knowing too much about the study, I'm guessing they're referring to the fact that in our social relationships, we size up each other quickly, whether right or wrong. We're doing it. We can't help ourselves. And in this case, I guess they're saying maybe future husbands and wives need to consider that early reaction, that early feeling. Okay,
so they're saying that if you have a gut feeling about the relationship, you need to talk about it first, or maybe sever the relationship?
I don't know, sever, but certainly deal with it. There's kind of... you don't hear it as much anymore, but I bet, Jason, you've heard this growing up, in marriage especially, of the... there's a problem, but I'll fix it once we're together. We'll change each other, and that's very, very rare.
Okay.
And so I would certainly argue that if that instinct, that impulse is, let's use something more pedestrian, like, this guy's just pretty filthy, like he doesn't clean up after himself, and I just have a feeling that he's never going to do that. If you're going to have a long-term relationship with that person, you need to be okay with that. Okay. There's no evidence that you will change that. You will condition him to be a clean, person. Well, I hope they improve, but I don't know.
I've seen enough social utility on television and radio to tell me that if this ever does come up in like marital counseling, that the counselor will actually say, well, you knew this going in, so why didn't you say anything at first, right?
And that's maybe what this study is addressing, is reminding people that these instincts we might have need to be addressed before the long-term relationship, because those problems just don't disappear after marital bliss. And I've heard from several marriage and family therapists, when we talk about the problems couples have, we think about the big things like infidelity, or job issues, but oftentimes it's the little things like you don't pick up your laundry, or you eat this way, or you have you even like these girl names and I like these. Sometimes it's stuff that you wouldn't think could derail a relationship, that we just kind of ignored because we were in that blissful, euphoric state of we're going to be together forever and it's magical and it's wonderful and things like that. So,
do you think that every married couple has some sort of gut feeling going in, or what do you think?
We're social animals.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are. We're social animals, so I can't imagine that if you've been by married, I'm going to have a caveat. I'm going to have to say, have been dating for some time and are thinking about getting married. Then I would answer probably so, yes, because as a social animal, even you and I, we met doing a play together. We were quickly sizing each other up. Even in this case, it was, I throw out a joke or you throw out a joke, but we're still getting instincts. And if I feel like, well, he made this kind of joke, I don't think he's the kind of person I want to hang out with.
Oh, sure.
Like there's going to be something later on that's going to come up. So no. I think in long-term relationships.
Everywhere.
Now, if you're like in the sort of Disney-esque love at first sight, I just met you, let's get married.
Yeah.
Probably not thinking too hard about it.
And that's what Nathan did when we first met.
It is. It was a Disney romance.
Well, let's transition into your story. What's funny is, I'm bringing, sad marriage news to the married guy, and now Nathan is bringing sad animal news to me.
Sad cat news to the cat owner. Or if this article is any indication, you don't really even own your cat.
Totally agree with this article.
All right. So I'll toss the headline, and then I'll explain the research. The headline comes from a Geek System, and it's quoting research from several sites. It says, cats actually evolved to be indifferent to the people who love them. So basically, anyone who is a pet owner or just pays general attention to animal relationships with humans at a domestic level. The two big ones are cats and dogs. I mean, there are other pets out there, but those are the two things we talk about. And as those of you who have had either or both know, very different in how they interact with people. Dogs even themselves have the moniker man's best friend. There's enough stories of not only domesticating these dogs, but having them enter in almost family-like relationships. They sometimes seem to mourn the loss of their owners. Whereas cats, as connected and bonded as we can be, always seem kind of aloof and distant. And, hey, I like you when you're doing this, but okay, now I've decided for you to stop doing this. I'm going to go do my own thing. See you later. And so this research, and let me quote where this is coming from. Let me get my article out here. This is published in the University of Japan. And it says, basically shows that though cats do in fact recognize their owner's voice, they actively choose to ignore them. Apparently this is because cats actually domesticated themselves over the course of history, slowly moving closer to humans in order to gain access to rodents and populated areas.
So they're using us.
They are using us. So think of it this way. We have intentionally bred dogs and domesticated dogs for a number of labor uses, protection uses, and even, like I said, familial bond uses. Cats do not have a history of domestication, but obviously they are around us.
They don't help us herd cattle.
Right. We haven't taught them to function in that way. Not that they can't, but I mean, an animal can be conditioned to do things, but they don't have that lineage. And so what this article is basically bringing up 2 points. One, there is evidence that it's not that the cat, and most of you cat owners know this, it's not that the cat isn't smart, like it doesn't understand. It doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because that's never been a part of its evolution. In this case, as humans came together in social groups, we built towns and cities and societies. Well, there were things in that town and that city that attracted cats, so they basically have adapted to tolerate us. Because, hey, you live in the place that, for example, I mean, rats are drawn to us because we produce waste and excess food, and any student of history knows that, and cats wanted access to that food source and perhaps other food sources as well, so they learn to deal with us so that they can have access to food. But it's not the same as, for example, a dog learning to bond to us to protect us, or to, outside of food or resources. So it is kind of a funny article.
So in regards to cats and dogs, you have a friend that's a dog that would be so supportive of everything you have to say. Tell me about your day. Tell me about all the people you bumped into. Oh my God, that's the best story ever. Then you have an indifferent friend that you tell them a story, you might even say their name, and they're not even listening to you. Or, as Nathan said, they won't respond to you. So, and I say this all the time, I'll yell at Archer. He won't respond, but his ear moves a little bit. And so what Nathan's telling us is that they're only using us so they can be at least close to mice. Or, since they don't have to deal with any mice, they do kind of want to just make sure that they're in the kitchen around the same time that we are. And then that's the only time they're ever like, hey, you can feed me now, since you don't have any mice around here to play with.
I want to read, on that note, I want to read this last couple of sentences of this article. I thought it was really funny. Now I'm quoting the Geek System as a website, and then they make a quote of the journal. It says, the study ends on a hilarious note, basically saying that we have no idea why cat owners actually like cats, noting that, and this is what the article quotes, the behavioral aspect of cats that cause their owners to become attached to them are still undetermined. So they're basically saying, we're not even exactly sure why we as humans are so drawn to them, given they don't do the same type of affection that you might expect in a dog.
I think it's got to be the opposite of whatever you're looking for a dog. Like, I might not want all that attention.
Yeah, that independence of comedy.
But I find it curious that I have to seek out the attention from a cat and things like that. But from a cat owner, I just think they're cool. It's kind of like you're domesticated with something that's still a little predatory.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever seen them with like the little pink or the little red dot from a laser, they go into predatory mode, and I don't know, you just don't see that in your house. You don't have an alligator that's primed to attack a gazelle in your house. And dogs, let's face it, they're just not predatorial. Maybe the ones that are closer to like wolves and things like that.
Yeah, we try to breed that out typically unless they're specifically for that cause. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, I read this years ago about cats, was the only reason your cat doesn't kill you is its size.
Yeah, oh yeah. If it was bigger than me, it would kill me. So.
And now with that said, guys, I do have dogs, but I've had cats growing up all my life. Like, we didn't have dogs growing up. I like cats too, but I don't disagree with this article. There is that interesting aloofness. But I agree with your statement that, yeah, I find myself drawn to cats in that I like the idea of a pet, but I like that independence. Because I would love to, go on a trip for a couple of days and know my cat is fine.
Yeah.
They can litter box, feed themselves, they can regulate that. Awesome. You can't do that with dogs. Like, they just don't have that kind of biology, or at least it would take an incredible change in how I taught and conditioned them to do that, and it's typically not a good idea. So, but then, like you said, you find yourself, like, as a dog owner now, I find myself going, okay, dog, that's enough attention. I need a break. But as a cat owner, I remember being like, come on, cat, I want some love. Come on, cat. So that's my weird science on top of weird science on top of current events. We have like one big block.
Woo! And we'll have one of equal size here in a few seconds.
We absolutely. No, for listeners, we are in the last couple of weeks we are doing things a little bit differently, and we appreciate you guys dealing with that, because this is not finals week, the last week of class. We've got finals next week, so our schedules are all sorts of crazy.
Yeah. I still got a debate tournament this weekend.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
We'll talk about that in the closing. So.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's take a break there because I need a breather, and when we come back, we will certainly do a feature, and this time, because of our fun mandate we had, do a little bit of geeking out.
Yeah.
And also do a little bit of a closing of what's to come for these holidays. So we'll see you then.
Because it's going to be the future soon, and I won't always be this way. When the things that make me weak and strange get engineered away. It's going to be the future soon. I've never seen it quite so clear. And when my heart is breaking, I can close my eyes and it's already here.
Episode 42 of Psych Out is brought to you by Psych Out.
By us!
Because, Nathan, we just don't tell our audience enough how to listen to us.
Well, they had 2 weeks of, not telling them.
Yeah, so anyways, let's do the 5 W's. Nathan,
Okay.
Who are we? Well, I'm Nathan. Oh, yeah, I'm Jason, I'm sorry.
I could be either, because apparently Jason is single white female.
And I also have a note here, Jason. I also have a note here, Nathan, that says take our classes. So if you're a student listening and you're coming here next semester, take Speech 101 with Jason Edgar.
Or me. I don't know. Apparently we're swapping. Yes, psychology classes, take them from me.
Nathan Gandy. And what are we? Well, we are a podcast, that broadcast weekly involving current events, weird science, and pop culture. And it's going to be very pop culturally here in a few seconds, Nathan, since we're going to talk about some Hunger Games and zombies and things like that. Woo! And I'm sure they want to know when, Nathan. So if they want to know all about pop culture, all about Psych Out, we record on Monday. Nathan edits on Tuesday, and then we have a release date every Wednesday.
Yes.
At your convenience.
My convenience.
It is really Nathan's convenience as soon as it's done editing. Where can you listen to us? You can listen to us at PSYCH-OUT.podbean.com. That's hard to do without the script right here.
Absolutely.
Or you can download us on iTunes anytime.
Please
or
do.
You can listen to us on YouTube.
Now on YouTube. Look at my face.
YouTube.com/CrowderPsychout. And last but not least, Nathan, I think we have to tell them why. Why listen
because
to us.
we love you.
Because first off, we love you. We want you to listen to us talk. But actually, we talk about cool stuff, right, Nathan?
Yes, we hope to educate and entertain.
Yeah. Do you have any
And sometimes we do neither. So
Sometimes
look out for that.
There's one of those nuggets where we actually do.
We do both. Yeah.
Nathan, do you have any favorite episodes?
Well, certainly I loved our superhero episode where we had guest speakers talking about the mythology of the superhero.
Episode 17, Podcast of Steel.
Absolutely. And since today we're going to talk a little bit about zombies, our first big feature, our Walking Dead podcast.
Episode 6.
Yes, that was a good one too.
I liked episode 31, Grand Theft Audio, and that's so far, like, it's people have listened to that one more than any of our other podcasts on YouTube.
Hooray!
So. And then also, I don't know, I was a pretty big fan of episode 34, Our Undead Romance, because of the live studio musician, Aaron Kosher.
That was the first for us, too. And we got a bunch more awesome stuff coming in the future, so now that you know how to listen, please subscribe on iTunes or Podbean. And Jason, real quick, if they want to interact with us, tell them how.
Oh, yes, they can just post on our Facebook wall, follow us on Twitter, send us messages. They can even email us at crowder.edu. Just spell out our names.
Carrier pigeon,
edu.
spray paint on a wall.
And as Devin, Cody, Lindsay Steele, and Andrea Mars even will attest, if you send us something, and Nathan's mom too,
Hi, Mom.
we'll talk about it.
Yes.
So anyways, we are Psych Out. Listen to us. Continue to do so. And end commercial. Do we even have I don't even think we have a slogan. Go green with Psych Out. No, I can't. We can't do that. That's Merit Center. Oh boy.
Wah, wah.
Well, Nathan, as the transition was beautiful.
It was smooth. I didn't know it had happened. Didn't realize we were at a new segment now.
Let's go. Go ahead and move on into our feature discussion where, what'd you decide, Nathan?
As a big picture, we decided that, based on the car ride we had from the Hunger Games, that we kept pitching things that we were into that we thought each other should check out, TV, film, things like that. So what we're going to do is pitch a couple of Geek Out, as some of you listeners know, our segment, some things that we're into that maybe you haven't caught or should check out for various reasons.
Some new, some old.
Absolutely. Now, I think we should start with where this discussion started and go to the Hunger Games, because that's what we went and saw. And
this is the second installment of Hunger Games.
Second Hunger Games.
Hunger Games Catching Fire.
Catching Fire, and I think we both agreed we loved it.
Very enjoyable movie. And I was trying to figure out what I like so much about Hunger Games. It's got kind of like a Harry Potter feel to it, like that thing that what's her coach's name? You know,
Woody
Harrelson. I'm not good with the names except for the main character.
Yeah.
He sends them like a gift, and you can put that into the trees and drink out of it. Stuff like that doesn't exist, so it's got a little bit of science fiction into it. So what I wrote, basically, Nathan, was that it's a simple concept with very complex themes.
I like that, absolutely. But I think
they even number it like District 1 is the best, District 12 is the worst.
Right.
And what were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to say, we did a whole podcast on this too about how, I certainly believe that sci-fi is one of the best genres to tackle complex things, but from kind of a safe space. We're talking about class dividing here. We're talking about government corruption and oppression. Some heavy political...
And also mass communication effects.
Absolutely, media and...
The whole Hunger Games is shown...
It's like reality TV, basically. You get to tackle those subjects, but you have this nice sort of sci-fi space, which I'm going to come back to later when I bring up my individual topics. But and that's certainly what attracted me to the movies. They're very intense, if not brutal times. We're talking about kids having to compete in some terrible events and dying in both films. But by no means do I think it's superfluous or they're just to sort of titillate like a slasher film or something. It's there to make you realize, what we hold sacred, what we hold important, what does it mean for this world to exist. But take that all now just as a action, drama, suspense, exciting movie. It's that too. If you don't want to tackle the two things, which I hope you will, it's still a fun movie.
As someone who hasn't read the book, I was actually surprised to realize that there's going to be another Hunger Games event in the show, and that's what's great, right? It builds up to yet another Hunger Games. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's kind of like the best of the best are in it now. So Katniss has an even slimmer chance of survival, especially with Peeta. I always thought his name was Peter, and she was just saying it, Peeta. But no, his name is actually
Peeta.
Peeta.
Come on, Gov.
And then I think they're also going to have a kind of a Hunger Games. Obviously, they're going to have a third installment, but there's going to be another Hunger Games in that one as well. I guess there's a way that they're going to try to get the president involved in it as well. So
it's crazy.
Now
everything's going to heck. That's all I can say.
Going to heck, says Nathan.
My strong language. Watch the movie. I don't want to say anymore because it's awesome.
It's really good. And as I admitted, I haven't read the books, and a student even called me out on it because they love calling out instructors, and they're like,
"Oh, do they?"
why didn't you read Mr. Edgar? Well, and I told him it's the same reason I didn't read Twilight or Harry Potter is because whenever these books are written, they're written for young adults. Right? Sometimes whenever they make movies from young adults, sometimes they have more of an adult feel. Like the later Harry Potters were way more for adults. Twilight most certainly wasn't. But Hunger Games really harkens back at the kind of the moral dilemmas that these kids and these adults even have to have. And like I said, it's a simple concept. Winners, get treated with all this food and losers get nothing.
Dead.
So
get nothing but an arrow in the face.
And I knew Nathan would appreciate that because he's always saying, everything bad is good for you. So do you think watching the Hunger Games is a net positive versus reading the book?
I don't think it has to be versus. I think either way you consume it. I think the important point is to consume it. I think if kid, I would say I'm going to argue like preteen teens is the demographic ultimately for this. I think if kids at that age, especially young teenagers, are reading or watching this, like I said, it's forcing them to think about some heavy issues. What is the role of government? What is the role of class? Is this fair? What is fair? What is wealth distribution? Should that be a thing? That's one of the reasons I like some of the shows I liked as a kid and even as an adult, because they made me go, oh, wow, I got to think about some things. Yeah. But it's not, an ABC after-school special. Here's peer pressure, kids. Like, it's a story, and then you go, oh, there's something deeper. So I don't care how you consume it, but I do recommend you either read them or watch them. Now, I am going to throw a little caution there, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this, but I did see some younger kids in the audience, and it was a pretty brutal film. It's PG-13. You can argue what that means. Now, certainly, if the kids have read the books, I don't think it's inappropriate for these to see the film. If they've processed it, it's fine. Harry Potter was kind of that same way. Like you said, the later ones get pretty heavy, pretty dark. So parents just kind of, if you want to screen it before you see certain age kids, that's a great idea. It's good parenting there. You're going to have to decide is your kid mature enough to see this? Yeah. Can they understand what's going on there? But overall, 2 thumbs up. So
cool. And we started with a new one. That obviously came out this week.
Yeah.
Let's go to an old one, which is
Back in Time.
The Walking Dead. Had a mid-season finale,
which Jason is not allowed to say anything about on this podcast because I have not watched it yet.
Lord, it was such a good. It was probably the best season finale of any of the Walking Dead episodes or series or seasons that we've seen.
Right, and this is just the mid-season, right? Because it's coming back.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Walking Dead does 16 episodes each season, and they've done this the past 3 seasons because the first season wasn't as long.
Yeah.
And my friends are always like, "Oh my God, Walking Dead! How could you do that?" And it's actually quite brilliant from Walking Dead's perspective because they don't want to interfere with Christmas.
Yeah.
And a lot of
I don't want to watch that show at Christmas, and I like the show.
Remember when it was on Easter Sunday?
Yeah.
Well, anyways, but we all know that a lot of our shows go on hiatus. The Daily Show goes on hiatus. Yeah. Colbert.
Holidays.
A lot of, so they don't want to interfere with the holidays. And like Nathan said, you don't want to be killing zombies on Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas, kids.
And then also, guess what else is in January? NFL playoffs, and that typically happens on Sunday. Yeah. So they're actually quite brilliant bringing it back in February, right after the Super Bowl. And Nathan, I was going to tell you, speaking of reading and things, you know how I told you that I got into The Walking Dead by reading that first compendium, right? A compendium is about 1,000 pages, and let's see here. It was, I want to say, 48 comics, and it's about that thick.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're huge.
The last image from this past week was the last image on the last page of that compendium.
Nice.
So you're talking about...
So they're coming together.
Yeah. And what your friend Ben Barnes said is that it looks like they're getting right back into the same kind of weaving into the story as the comics are.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier in the episode 34, Undead Romance, how we had heard there's going to be one show that's been based on the comics. This one was most certainly volume 48.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's certain things that the governor does. I won't say what he does. There's certain lines that are said. Certain people die. It's different than the comics. In fact, the one main death in the show is different than the one in the comics. But Nathan hasn't seen it since they kicked Carol out of the group.
Yeah. You can't say it. Just don't say anything.
It's just so good.
Don't say anything.
And that's the thing. Like Walking Dead kind of has its detractors because it moves a little slow. But this whole season finale here really tells you why they go in these certain directions, because they have to build up a character. They have to show you a certain aspect. zombie movies are like an hour and a half long. Walking Dead is dozens and dozens
you can't
of hours.
You can't have drama of that caliber without tension, and you can't build tension if you're constantly going and going.
Yeah.
There's just a point where you're going to have fatigue. You're going to be like, okay, I'm tired of things happening all the time.
Sure, yeah. You need some
the
slower
slow, you need the
episodes.
quiet. And you need to get to know people. You will not experience. It's like if you've ever watched like old shows, 70s, 80s, where if they wanted to kill a character, it was someone they brought in that episode. You know, like a guy you've never met, and then at the end, oh no, they killed him, because no one would dare kill a main character. But you're not really emotionally invested in that. It wasn't until 90s, 2000, we're like, hey, let's have a guy on a show for a while, and then Nixon. And fans went crazy, but it works. It's far more effective because you've spent time with them. I've always kind of had that problem, even like with really good movies. Is like I've only got 2 hours to get to know this person, so it's harder to fill that loss versus Walking Dead. I've had 3 years, let's say.
Yes.
Again, I don't know what happens, but so very cool stuff. Returning, we always seem to come back to Walking Dead. It's what we do on this podcast.
I mean, it's something we both like, and
We should say Psych Out brought to you by AMC. I feel like we should get something. AMC. I know you're watching.
They just do such a good job of interweaving that. We've also said that it has a lot of, let's see here, it's a lot about things that creep up on us in society, like technology. Technology is like slowly creeping up on us.
Absolutely.
All right, that's enough Walking Dead. Spoiler alert. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's talk about...
Punch you in the face.
You told me I had seen this show on Fox, probably in between episodes of New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it's called Almost Human. And to me, Nathan, like the previews, they looked kind of cheesy, and I'm already doing the following for Fox, so I didn't know if I wanted to jump in, but you're telling me that I probably should jump in.
Again, I've only seen 2 episodes. The 3rd is out, so I need to watch that, and the 4th one I think is today.
And what's it about?
At a super fast version, it's a future show. So us, that was called
few years in
the future. I want to say like in the 20s, 60s.
Because in that time period, we can invent whatever is this strange character is going to have, and they can just say that's how it is.
So, the first scene of the show says is that basically what they're saying is about 20, 30 years from now, they're not clear on why, but things just get bad. Crime's increasing. I think that there's all these synthetic drugs that are, so just things are getting bad. But because of advances in technology, specific robots like Amazon drones we talked about, their idea was to help the police combat just the sheer craziness that's going on.
There's probably an underwhelmed workforce, probably.
Yeah,
overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, absolutely. And so what we're going to do is, we have the technology to build these androids, these robots that look like people, but they, again, at their core, just robots. They're like toasters that do things.
RoboCop.
Okay? Right. And so they'll kind of be your partner, and they'll do things with you. But again, robots at this point they're treated like machines. They are machines. They act like machines.
Okay.
The show is about a cop played by Carl Urban. You know him from McCoy in the Star Trek movies.
Okay. I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah. As a cop who gets wounded, I think he's in a coma for like a year or so. He comes back. He even has like I think an artificial leg, but very technophobic, and it's in part because him and his partner died, and all this bad stuff happened because he's here with this robot cop, and he's like, we got to go in and save my friend, and the robot cop's like, no, the numbers say he's gonna die anyway. Bye. Basically being a machine. And so he's very distrustful. But since he's back as a cop, the rule is you have to have this robot partner. And so they actually, he ends up like throwing the one they give him out of car just because he's so frustrated with it. On the pilot. So the premise is they put him with this old model that they had tried out but were decommissioned because they act too human. They seem like too emotional, and they seem unpredictable. Right. And so it's on the surface, it's this kind of buddy cop, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really get along, but we do get along and obviously become friends kind of a thing. The bigger picture, though, and again, when we were talking about Catching Fire, why do I like sci-fi, is it's really making you question, what does it mean to be human? For example, you have this android who you're getting to know, starting to ask questions about, what happens after you die? what is death? You know,
Shut up, computer.
I get turned off. What happens when and not that he doesn't understand death, but like, just what does that mean? What is that concept? And so,
and they probably don't understand it whenever humans say we don't know.
Right. And so it's this very interesting dilemma. So the story is this cool cops in the future. If you've ever seen, there's a movie in the 80s called Blade Runner. For those of you listening or watching, if you've seen that movie, you have a really good idea of this. Basically, let's assume we get to the point where we can build robots that act and talk and walk just like people. Are they people? Like, do they get rights? Are they slaves?
Mm-hmm. Sounds like iRobot.
A similar idea. Similar idea. So that it's that kind of classic sci-fi thing done in a cool cop drama future package.
RoboCop.
RoboCop. It really does feel like they took Blade Runner, RoboCop, and even a little bit of iRobot, just kind of mashed it together.
Yeah, there you go.
But like you said, I can see like cheesy the start there. I mean, TV sci-fi of that caliber typically comes off as, because of budget reasons, just bad. I'm super impressed with everything they put on the screen. The acting, the dialogue, the stories are more intense and personal and complex. They're not just sci-fi fluff, you know what I mean? So I'm a big fan. Again, there's only been 3 episodes, so who knows? But it's J.J. Abrams, the guy who redid Star Trek, director doing Star Wars. He's producing this with his partner that did Fringe, which is a TV show I really like.
Yeah, you like Fringe.
It's got a lot of those good elements there. So I will poke at Jason to make him watch it. I'll probably over the holidays maybe put it on a DVD for you.
You get that or Arrow. Well, thankfully there's not very.
Arrow's on Netflix.
Thankfully there's not a lot of episodes of Almost Human out so far.
No, just a few. Probably even watch it on.
Real quickly before we go to our closing, I wanted to chime in once again on Elementary.
Oh yeah,
which is CBS's version of Sherlock Holmes. It's has a female Watson, although that has nothing to do with it, right?
Right, but still cool.
Also takes place in New York. And this season, they're building more of the relationship between him and his brother Mycroft.
Yes.
And Mycroft is in all the adaptations of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And in this one, he's a little bit more of a playboy. But what you were telling me was not so much of a playboy. He's good with women.
Yeah, more worldly and more comfortable with Sherlock theory. Not.
And I didn't notice this too. I always have a problem suspending disbelief on how much money a character has to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the reason why Bruce Wayne is such an easy feel for, let's say, Batman, because he has lots of money.
Yeah, billionaire done.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All you got to do is just tell me that. But if I know that my crime fighter doesn't have a lot of money, I actually have a hard time watching. And so you were telling me that somewhere in this series they've said that he has a large trust from his father.
Right. Well, his father is apparently very wealthy. I don't believe they've said specifically what his father does and where his money comes from, but he's getting paid from his dad. And I think that's going to be the kind of the arc
the thread this season.
Yeah, he's going to lose that money, and what do you do?
Yeah. Again, I just think it's a really great show. We talked about how we had seen a recent episode that was really, really good.
Yes.
It talks about how Sherlock Holmes sometimes knows the answer and just trying to get the rest of the humans on board.
Right.
It's so tough.
He knows the solution, but not how he got to this, how to get to the solution, so he can't bring you along.
And honestly, that's the reason probably why he can't hold down a job is because he's overqualified for every single job on the planet. He's way too smart for every job, and that's the reason why they just have to consult him. And it's the same way in Sherlock, the BBC show. He doesn't. He's just a consultant, and it's probably for the same reasons. He's just so hard to get along with. Sometimes you have to have social skills to keep a job.
That's it exactly. Like that's actually the both. I love both Sherlocks, but the reason why I like any story like that, especially the Sherlock stories, is I love stories of people, and even Dexter to an extent, trying to be human, like trying to figure that. Even the robot thing I just talked about, like
House was like that.
House, good example too. Like I just like that, trying to figure out, because you're so probably advanced is what we're saying, probably cognitively, mentally advanced, that you just can't figure out what we consider to be normal human. Like my favorite Sherlock example, and mild spoilers, so if you don't want to listen, fast forward a little bit, was, and this is just something said in the show, it's never shown, that he knew that this woman was marrying Mycroft for his money, didn't like him at all. So his way to prove that was to convince the woman to sleep with him You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not even because he was like, I like sleeping with. It was like in his mind, I've proven it. Instead of like, how socially inappropriate is it to get someone's fiance? Instead of trying to prove it another way, he's just like, hey, this will prove it. Like, this will get you the solution. Forget the social ramifications of this.
And
I was like, that's Sherlock. Like, can't figure out just normal human stuff.
I know it's kind of similar to Asperger's, but that's what what's the author of Sherlock Holmes?
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
That's been Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
It's hard to say. Out of my mouth.
Very good, Mr. Gandy. But he's been kind of researched recently as kind of having more of a. Do you think Sherlock Holmes has Asperger's, Mr. Gandy?
Yeah, it's hard to do fictional characters, and also my clinical stuff is not as good. He certainly has some sort of social illness, and Asperger's comes to mind because one of the key Asperger's and autism itself, some of the key symptoms are failing to empathize or understand social connections. I could see some people calling him a high functioning Asperger's, and whether or not that's true I don't know, but that sort of that disconnect from humans, and we've said on this podcast many times, I mean, we're social animals. Like, that's something that for most of us, some of us are better than others, but generally speaking, we kind of understand that language because that's who we are. And so, when you have those rare individuals that are just, it's like I said, operating almost like a different wavelength, like just not even on that same spectrum.
It's a good wavelength, but it's not good socially.
Right, absolutely. So I definitely love Elementary. I know there's some haters on it because of the BBC Sherlock started first. Hey, I like them both.
I like them both, peeps.
It's cool. It's cool. Well, I think that's enough geeking out.
Oh boy, we're so geeked out.
But man, we still got to wrap things up.
Closing time.
And so, really, the big closing stuff is you're still doing stuff for Crowder.
Yeah. We got the Cameron debate tournament. If you've ever been to my office or maybe the debate trophy case, you always see this beautiful nutcracker. Right? You've seen it in my office, right?
I tried to steal it once. So, yeah.
They give these out at the Cameron Christmas Classic. This is in Lawton, Oklahoma.
I love the alliteration.
Yeah. Unless Will Wheeler wins every single award, we probably won't win sweepstakes because I'm just taking one student. But we're kind of doing a little hybrid with...
No pressure, Will.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
We're doing a hybrid with Southwest Baptist, which means... one debater from Crowder, one debater from SBU, and they're going to compete and see how well they did. The last time we had this little arrangement with SBU, we took second at the tournament, and it was an open tournament, and we lost ultimately to Texas Tech.
Not bad.
So, holy cow. But going to Lawton, Oklahoma, and the one thing I wanted to say about this is that Oklahoma makes you pay tolls.
Yes.
And it goes to road construction.
Oh, my gosh.
And they have the worst roads in the United States. So...
There was one Christmas I
had to drive on those on Friday or Thursday, whenever.
I was driving to. It was some holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I was driving to Kentucky, and I needed to get to Joplin, but I needed to go east or west. I forget which one.
Yeah.
But I forgot to turn, and so if you stay on the interstate by Joplin for too long, it becomes Oklahoma, and they put those barriers, and you do not leave until you pay a toll.
Yeah.
So I had to pay a toll to get off the highway, turn around, pay it to let me leave in 30 seconds. I was like, you can watch me turn around. Yeah. Do I have to pay twice? And they're like, yes. I hate you, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is not okay.
Oklahoma, here's the deal, man. I get tolls, I get that. But I just don't think you should have people pay to come to your state. It just seems bad news. You should be like, are you from Oklahoma? Show me your driver's license. No, come on in.
Do it with lottery tickets like Arkansas does. The idiot tax shouldn't be driving because people drive that are idiots or geniuses.
I felt
Me and
that
Nathan
way.
both.
I felt that way when I didn't take the right exit. I was like,
all right, so anyways, speaking of smart people, everyone's going to be smart for the next week. Nathan, you know why? We're cramming for finals week.
Finals. By the way, cramming's a bad idea. Don't do that.
I'm guessing that you give a written examination, right?
It depends on the class. My general psych has a comprehensive final. They have to cover everything they've ever done, but I typically do 100 question multiple choice thing.
Whoa! Holy cow! 100 questions.
Yeah. But it's multiple choice.
So you're the teacher that the reason we have a 2-hour final is because of you.
In theory, they've never taken that long. Now, my more advanced classes, like child or adolescent, they have to do a little bit of writing too.
Oh, okay.
But it's not as long.
In my class, I haven't even disclosed this to my classes yet, but they have to give a speech. Either a persuasive or a special occasion. So now they have to deal with their...
Really? Is that hard to predict, though, in this class? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Who didn't see that coming?
Yeah. Highly functioning speech anxiety during finals week. You're welcome, students. So
Do you have enough time to do that?
no, absolutely.
2 hours?
I mean, it's not going to be like a 5-minute speech. It's going to be more of like a 3-minute speech, one visual aid, one verbal citation, but it's like one last... speech before you leave.
One last little torture. Is that you thought you were out?
No, but you were saying giving a speech during speech week. How obvious? Well, actually,
that may not be.
Actually, it's not that hard at this point of the semester. We give out these surveys to students. They're called PRPSAs. I don't necessarily know the acronym, but it's basically gauging their speech anxiety at the beginning of the semester and at the end of the semester. Nearly every student goes down.
Yeah.
Because in between the class. They just realize that it's not that big of a deal,
Right.
If this knucklehead can do it,
Yes.
anybody can. And I'm pointing to me, not Nate.
No, it's still You're actually right though, because I have that. We've said it before on the podcast, but some of you probably know that glossophobia is the number one phobia in the U.S.
As we've learned from that Chrome commercial for so many months.
I forgot about that.
Anyways,
I didn't realize that.
Fear of public speaking.
Yes, but I was the same way. Like, for whatever number of reasons, probably how I was raised in different things, I have never had that. Mm-hmm. So, as an instructor, and I even taught a speech class a couple times in a different school because I had to, but not being trained in that. I couldn't figure out like how to help students because in my mind I'm like I'm not scared, so don't be scared.
Even as a speech instructor, I still battle with that.
Right,
I say be
tough.
confident.
Right, but
Which
you
is
have
the
have the things in place, like you said, to help them reduce.
Sure,
they have all these little practices and things like that. So I think that's really cool, and certainly students who are listening. I know you feel anxiety. It really isn't. No one cares because everyone who's sitting and listening to you is too busy worried about their own speech.
Yep.
That they're not thinking about you or judging you.
Yeah.
They're too distracted.
So don't have no fear because they're not listening to you anyways.
And Jason's probably like half awake during your speeches, so just move your hands a lot. And he'll give you an A.
I promise I'm not on Instagram during your final. One last thing, Nathan, we got to say it. We've got to have students interested in interviewing with us next semester because we're having student interviews for next semester.
Yeah, student-focused semester.
What do you want to talk about, students?
You tell us.
I want to find one of these knuckleheads playing Magic the Gathering and come in and tell us.
Now they're knuckleheads again. What is this?
I called myself a knucklehead.
These are my people.
The people that play Magic. So Brian Savard, if you're listening, come interview with us.
Yeah,
we want to
talk to you about it.
We want to know why Magic the Gathering is all of a sudden becoming more popular.
I will say I was surprised. I mean, it's been around for a decade at least. It's certainly big in the geek circles, and I'm in those geek circles. But yeah, just coming to Crowder one semester and suddenly dozens of men and women are playing. I'm like, well, this has been around for years. Why now?
And these tables have been around for years.
Right. But yeah, suddenly they're chock full of card players.
I got to tell you something funny. On the debate team, we'll always say, well, fantasy football is just like Magic the Gathering. And then we'll also talk about how our players are injured. And one of my debaters, Natalie, once said, you wouldn't have any injured players if you had a wizard on your team.
That is absolutely right. Hey, Natalie, you're awesome.
That's a debate student for you.
That's nice.
I got nothing more to say, Nathan.
Oh, well, I've got nothing other than finals and holidays approaching, so don't be surprised if we have a couple of weird little recording sessions in terms of how we pace things like today, because next week is finals. We don't have office hours. We don't have normal classes. We are giving final exams, but Jason and I will be here because we will have something every week. Coming up really soon will be a Christmas episode, much like our Thanksgiving one, because we have some Christmas culture to talk about, some Christmas history, and really just not just Christmas, holidays in general. There's a lot of neat stuff to talk about. So until that time comes, Jason, with Thanksgiving past and holidays coming in the future, sign us off.
Happy holidays from Crowder Psych Out.
That was not bad. It's the beginning of December, so maybe inappropriate, but see you soon, listeners.
Have a happy December 4th.
I know you know that I'm not telling the truth. I know you know. Just don't have any ways of deception. Learn how to bend your worst inhibitions. Gonna psych you out in the end.